This is Really Famous. I'm Cara Mayer Robinson, and I interview famous people. But I don't just interview them like your typical interview. I'm not really interested in those same old questions. Instead, I like to know who they really are and what they really think. Sometimes it's like listening to old friends catching up, and other times it's like eavesdropping on a therapy session. My guest today is Costa Ronin. So Costa is currently on the final season of Homeland. That's right, the very end. It's almost wrapped up, and Costa plays a major role in how it all ends. He plays Yevgeny, who is working very closely with Carrie Mathison. Costa was also a pivotal character in another excellent TV series, The Americans, which you've heard me mention before. He played Oleg Burov. So Costa and I talk about both shows quite a bit at the beginning of our conversation. So spoiler alert, we do talk about some recent things. So after that, we get more and more personal as the conversation goes on. He shares some personal wisdoms. I talk about therapy. We talk about the meaning of life. So if for some reason you didn't watch Homeland or The Americans, skip ahead about 20 minutes or so. So we taped this conversation just a few days ago. We had originally planned to meet up in Los Angeles in early March, but I canceled my trip because of the whole coronavirus situation. But happily, we could still do it remotely, each of us from home.
Like when I work on a character, all my characters have got their own playlists. And for every scene, I have a track, a song. And so a lot of the time, you know, depending on where you're shooting, you hear a song, and that song is so perfect for the scene you're about to do.
Oh, okay.
So to me, I always kind of try, Cara, to stay open, and I don't really look at it as sitting around. You know, right now, you know, some people are sitting around. I'm talking to you and doing self-tapes.
Join the club. Me too.
Reading the books, you know, we're all, and, you know, like.
I like it. Right.
Actors don't need, artists in general, I don't think we need a permission to work.
Yeah.
You know, we don't need for somebody to pick up a phone and say, hey, you know, you're good enough to work. No, go and work. Read books, read plays. You know, just like this. If you were an actor and I was an actor, we could do a two-hander right now.
True.
Just work on a scene, just like this on Zoom.
True.
And it's work. It's, you know, we're still working on memorizing lines. We're still breaking down and analyzing the script. We're still working on our craft. It's kind of that we're kind of eternal students.
Okay, back up a minute. I need to know what song you had playing for the last scene of Homeland. Now, it's not this last week because I have got to press a screener. So I'm already, I'm a week ahead. Well, I'm a couple of weeks ahead. But this
Well, you've watched 8, 9, and 10. Yeah,
yes,
I know.
I watched 8, 9, and 10. So our conversation is going to run after this coming Sunday's episode. So that would be what, 9, right? That's 9?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was a big one.
So you know what happens.
I can say it and we can talk about it because this is not going to go until Monday. Okay. So that was major. That was like a huge episode. Yeah. So what was playing, what song did you have for that? For that last scene, let's say.
I can't remember because we shot it quite a while ago.
Okay.
Yeah. After we air, because I got all my notes. So after we air the finale, I will actually publish my playlist as sort of a gift. Cool. But just from the top of my head, I won't remember.
Okay.
It's, you know, it's like it's because I used to work on a radio station many years ago, and it's kind of, I don't have a set taste for the music. I listen to everything from Frank Sinatra to trance and drum and bass. And a lot of the time, it's something that is completely obscure, something that you will never listen to. Okay. But it just enters your conscience and or you dream of it. And it's just like it's there. Do you know what I mean? Like when you write something, you have probably music playing, and you're like, oh, this is great.
Of course.
And you kind of side track, and you're like, you know. Right?
And then it's in. It becomes part of your whole. Yeah. I totally get what you're saying, and I see why you would use that too. we have to talk about the actual scene then, or like the
Sure.
whole, let's talk about that quickly. I
Yeah.
can't go without talking about Homeland because it's so good right now. So let's talk a little bit about
It's always been good.
It's so good to see it wrapping up so strongly. And you get to be a big part of that, which is super cool. So I saw you on Instagram Live the other night. You were taking some questions. So
the least we can do right now, you know, when everybody is stuck at home, not everybody has a chance to kind of have a communication.
yeah.
So I thought the least I can do is open all of the channels available to me and try to make fans feel a little bit closer.
Yeah.
You know? And,
well, Homeland is great for right now, by the way, also. I find personally that there are like two types of shows that are perfect for this time period where everybody's indoors and the whole world has like completely changed. So it's either like tragic or like dire and dangerous situations that are urgent. You know what I mean? Like things like Homeland, perfect. Or the opposite, which is like such a ridiculous comedy. Like, I don't know if you watch Schitt's Creek. Have you ever seen that?
No. I am aware of the show, but
that's another
I haven't
good
seen
one.
it. Yeah.
But Homeland is so good. So let's talk about Homeland real quick. Okay. All right. So what is your deal? What is Yevgeny's deal with Carrie? You know, look like there's some stuff going on. I know that a lot of fans are like more concerned about, is this going to be a relationship for Carrie? We want this. But like, I think the more pressing thing is whose side are you on and what are you doing with her?
You know, it's a lot of the questions that get asked. They're about, are you loyal? Is Yevgeny loyal to Carrie, or is Yevgeny loyal to Russia? And I really don't think it's a fair enough question, because they're not really loyal to one another. They're loyal to their countries. They're loyal to their people. They're not always loyal to their governments, because they feel that being loyal to the people of their countries is more important than being loyal to the governments. Hence, you know, Carrie constantly getting into trouble.
Yes.
But as far as being loyal to one another, I don't think there is that. I think I don't think anybody is really loyal to one another. I really feel that at this point they are really discovering each other, and what they recognize, which is more important, is that they have finally found someone who understands them. Because similar to Carrie, Yevgeny has gone through life not being able to connect to women, not being able to connect to co-workers, because nobody can understand. Well, first of all, he cannot talk about his work. And even if he did, nobody would be able to understand or relate to what he's got to do and what he's going through, you know. So he ends up being this lone wolf, basically on a constant mission, you know, which changes, you know. Carrie is not his only mission. He has a number of things going on. So at this moment, they're still trying to figure it out. The beauty of the writing and what Alex and the team were able to create was, we know where they're coming from, but we don't know as audience where they're going. And the audience is discovering it together with the characters.
Right.
So at this point, we know that, we found out that Carrie was withholding information about the black/orange box literally a few minutes before Yevgeny did. Mm-hmm. And how can you be loyal to somebody who was clearly withholding information from you? On the other hand, they both understand that they cannot be completely transparent with one another. Even though they are looking basically at a mirror reflection of themselves, they cannot be completely honest with one another at this point. Anyway, it will take a lot more than just a few days on the road in a Land Rover Defender without the air conditioner through the roads of Afghanistan to kind of bond.
Yes.
So I'd say that I'd say they're still discovering it.
Yeah, it's so
and they will
good
continue
to
to
not
discover
know.
it.
Yeah, it's so you want to not know. Also, really, like I would be.
Well, that's
really
the beauty of television.
Exactly.
That's the beauty of television is that you find out, actually more than the characters do. because you know pieces of the puzzle that were sort of like dispersed through the lives of other characters, whereas we as characters are in our own bubbles, in our own worlds. So, once Yevgeny is on the road with Carrie, he doesn't know what's happening in the CIA headquarters. He doesn't know what Sol is doing until it's reported to him. So they're in those bubbles until they get those sort of phone calls and they're like, okay, well, this is what's going on with Pakistan and the US and this and that. So
it was good. A lot of twists this season. It's good. A lot of twists. You don't see them coming. It's all good, and you don't know who's with who or whatever. But Carrie and Saul seem to be on solid ground too, so that's always good for all of us, the viewers out there. And you were too, right? You watched it before you ever were on it, right?
Yeah. I was a fan of it from day one. I never thought I would be on that show, but I was watching it like from the very beginning. Yeah.
That must be a little intimidating, right? When you go and you're like, okay, this is great. But at the same time, it's like you go and you're already going on to the show that you love and it's very established. Is it a little?
I wouldn't call it intimidating, but it definitely has an added element of responsibility because, first of all, the show is so huge. I mean, it's one of the top shows in the world. And the show has been successful. The characters have been successful for so many years. Before I joined it, it's already been successful for 6 years. And you come in and you basically, when you create a character, you create them and then you bring them and then you let them play. You let them exist in the world that's created by the writers and directors. And a lot of the time, you basically, you bring a character that hasn't played in that world before. Whereas there's all these other guys who've been playing together for 6 years.
Yeah.
All these actors and the crew that's been bonding for the last 6 years. So there is that added element of responsibility. You want to make sure that, the character you've created fits into the puzzle of the puzzle of this story. But this is where, Alex and I were having, before my day one, like I did most of my work before I started on day one. And even before I started filming, Alex and I and Leslie and I had a number of conversations on the phone to make sure that we're kind of seeing in the same direction. Because at the end of the day, my job is to help them realize their vision. So there's no point of me bringing a character that's not really fitting with their vision.
Right.
So that's that.
Okay. So I just have to make one comment on Homeland before we move on to the Americans. So Max, poor Max, and after all of this time, like his last days were such a struggle. I'm like, poor Max, all this time he had to go through all this. And it reminded me that Quinn went through the same thing. Quinn, do you remember when Quinn died? I mean, there was so much struggle for Quinn before he finally died. And I thought, this is just terrible. I feel so bad for both of them.
Well, there's an element of storytelling that's involved there for sure. But Max has been one of 3 characters that started this show. It was Carrie, Saul, and Max. And Max been there through everything.
The whole thing. You always see Max, like he'll be out for a while and then, Max.
Yeah, absolutely. And the beauty of what Maury was able to do is that I think you may have picked up on when I did the broadcast a couple of days ago. His storyline this season was shot back to front because we had to shoot the death scene in Morocco and then basically the rest of his journey to the helicopters and the run back and all that sort of stuff when we got to LA because of different aspects of filmmaking. And so he had to basically die before he was able to leave and tell the rest of the story and find the orange box and all these things. And Maury's become a very, very dear friend of mine. And
that's so cool. He did a great job. Tell him we all appreciate what he went through and what he did to communicate that to all of us this season. And the whole time, you're right. He's been there all along. Always there's Max. So
He was he was more than the staple of the show. He was always kind of Carrie's confidant.
Yeah. And
Carrie wasn't able to tell everything to Saul because Saul could easily shut her down, but Max was always there for her and all her sort of like black operations and things that she did.
All good. All right, so let's switch to the Americans because that's another amazing show. Like, so you've
Hmm.
been on such good things, and like Once Upon a Time. I mean,
Yeah.
this is some good stuff you've been in. So The Americans, I mean, dear to my heart. Love that show. The ending, I mean, spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen it, but that was maybe one of the best finales, I would
Hmm.
say, of all time. Like the whole final season, every season, it was so good. So, what do you think of the finale of The Americans?
Uh, it's a great question, Cara. To me, I think everybody kind of, I'm sure, imagined what it will be like at the end for all the characters. Some people are still speculating. People were writing and rewriting. Fans were writing and rewriting the end of Homeland for like at least the last 12 months. I've been
Oh,
reading
really?
alternative. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Ah,
There's alternative universe. I mean, there's great, great, terrific fans there who go out and they imagine and reimagine the worlds. With America, so basically, to me, what's important is not that the ending is kind of, do I like it, do I not like it? To me, what's important is that it's truthful to the characters and it's truthful to the story. And so if it is, then that's all that matters to me. I don't need to like my character. I don't need to like my character's story. I don't need to like my character's end. What I want what I want for him is what's truthful for him. And as an audience member, I think it's very, very important to kind of have a truthful ending to the story and to the characters. For the Americans, I actually was gunning for the suicide.
you
Also,
were?
yeah,
Get out of here. So
yeah.
tell me about that. Why?
He's a man of honor, and to him, I felt like it would be good for him to take the fall and basically to sort of die in the field as an officer, even though by that stage he was, already sort of, out of the force, and take the honorable death and to make sure that he protects his family, his wife and his son and his parents. But the Jays wouldn't give it to me. I was asking for it for the whole season, and they wouldn't give it to me. So
Well,
Oleg ended up in jail as a result, and yeah,
I
and
just
I'm sure
remember
he got released during the exchange after the disintegration of the Soviet Union, or maybe even during the sort of
okay.
the warming sort of 80s when Gorbachev came to power.
Yeah, I remember because it was a while ago, and it feels like it was probably a couple of years ago now, right? That it ended, probably like 2 years ago or
Hmm.
something.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I just remember seeing you sitting on a bench. Like that was a
Hmm.
very big scene, but like I don't even remember exactly what happened in that scene. But I think, like you're saying with the music, how it just, you feel it. It gets inside of you and you feel it. And for some reason, I'm just pulling up this scene in my brain and I just feel something for Oleg. Like I'm not sure what
Mm.
exactly happened in that scene, but I thought,
Well, Oleg's playlist was all very much about sort of very um, honorable, noble music about the noble officers and the noble sort of nobility of the Tsarist Russia, 18th, 19th century. When honor was honor.
yeah,
Uh, and that's what he was a big part of him as a character from the very beginning. That was his core. If you think of a character as an onion, and you pick it up and then you peel it, you get to the core of the onion.
yeah,
So that's like us as human beings. That's how we kind of get to know ourselves and one another. And so when you create a character, you start with the core, and then you layer all those layers on top. And so his core, at the core of his existence, was honor and doing the right thing. And I think that's kind of effectively what motivated his progression throughout the seasons as well, from being honorable to his friends in the beginning, to Nina, to being honorable to his wife, his son, and his country.
yeah.
And that scene with Arkady, when Arkady comes in, he knows he has to go because he knows that what he's about to do is he's probably gonna die. He knows he's probably not gonna come back. Like when Oleg leaves, that scene with his wife, which was played by the terrific Lanka Gu, and we had a great time shooting that scene in New York. And it was such a warm and emotional scene. And there's a reverse angle, there's a reverse shot where we kind of like, she comes to him and he comes around and we see his face. And he says that he'll come back, but he knows that he will not come back. And he says it to her. He says that goodbye to her, knowing that he's not going to come back, because chances of him coming back are zero.
Oh my gosh, so sad. You know what? There's a parallel in last week's Homeland. I'm just thinking, that just reminded me of that scene with Haqqani's like second in command. You remember when he?
Yeah.
And it was like the same kind of thing, although he made a video for his wife.
For his wife?
Yeah. Or did you not see it? Do you see?
I did see it. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I did see it.
Right. So remember, he made a video for his wife, knowing he's never going to see her again. I mean, it was a little more obvious for him, I guess, but right. That was so.
But emotional. I mean, that's what somebody would do. I mean, it was a little bit different for him, because for him, he's saying his last goodbye. For Oleg, his wife is there, you know, and he has to basically make sure that he goes, but he wants her to be at peace. I mean, the reason he's doing this is because of his son and because of the future generations of kids of Soviet Russians who are going to come after, you know. And effectively, you know, the world we live in was created by people like Oleg, who, you know, fought in the Cold War and who were creating this future on the sides of KGB and on the sides of CIA and FBI. You know, people were fighting that war for so many years.
So what do you think about what happened to Philip and Elizabeth? How the series wrapped up for them?
I think once again it's a very honest and a very truthful ending to them. These people exist amongst us right now. You know, the kids stayed behind. They went to Russia. Obviously, Carrie and Matthew, they don't speak Russian, but them as characters would speak Russian because they come from Russia. And they would, the interesting thing about their characters, though, Philip and Elizabeth, is that when they left Russia, it's almost like Soviet Russia was frozen in their minds and their imaginations. And this is why both Gabriel and Claudia did not talk about what's going on in the Soviet Union to them, because they did not want them to be exposed to the changes that the Soviet Union is going through. And so they were almost frozen in the time capsule in the time when they came to the US. So all these years later, for them to come back to the Soviet Union would have been quite an incredible revelation, because the country's changed so much, because we were by that stage in like mid-80s.
So interesting.
You know, and they left in the 70s.
So
we passed through the Reagan's era. We're now sort of, you know, Gorbachev is at power. We're now basically working towards the disintegration of the Soviet Union.
So you were born in, it was the USSR then, right?
Yeah.
So you were born there, and then you lived there for not that long, right? Or maybe like a part of your childhood, or like, tell me about that.
18 years.
Oh, you did 18? Oh, I thought.
Yeah, I grew up.
I read somewhere that you moved to New Zealand when you were like 7 or 8 or something. No? Fake.
Listen, there's so many stories about my life.
So let's get to the real stuff. So 18. So
I grew up, and I was born and I grew up there. And I lived through that time, and I lived through the fall of the Berlin Wall, and I lived through the crazy 90s in Russia, you know, when it was very, life didn't mean anything. It was basically the US, you know, America in the 1900s, the Wild West, you know. Lived through that, and I think our family moved in 95 or 96 something. No, 96, 97 I think, because 95 I finished school. So yeah, 96, 97.
So interesting. So like, what kind of kid were you? Who were you in the family? What was your
I was amazing.
Of course.
I was amazing. I was like the best kid on the block. Are you kidding me?
So give me some descriptors. What are some adjectives? What did you do? What were you like? How did your parents see you? What you were like? What? How would they describe you then?
Oh, you gotta ask my mom. You know, my mom and my parents and grandma, who was a huge influence in my life. It was like a second mother to me. They did teach us. They had a piano teacher come, and for 6 years, my brother and I were studying piano. Meanwhile, of course, being kids of our age, we wanted to go out and play hockey and soccer, football, and run around. So we did not want to study. We did not want to study music. But we had certain inclinations. My brother is terrific as far as picking up music. He can play anything. He can hear music and he can just play it. I can't. I can sing in the shower, and that's only if nobody can hear me. I'll be too embarrassed. I'll be like, I'm sorry, is that too loud? But it was interesting. It was really, really. I think we are sort of part of that generation that was really broken in a way, because we lived, the kids of today, they were born and grew up under Putin. It's a completely different Russia. Our generation, we were born in a country that was a communist socialist state, and that was moving towards sort of changing its economical state before, all the changes that happened. And we lived through that. We lived through the time just similar to now, when, there's really, you walk into a store and there's nothing in the store. And there's absolutely zero leadership. Nobody knows what's happening. Overnight, from one of the superpowers, there was literally nothing in the country, and nobody knew what to do. So we all lived through that, and being resilient, we kind of found a way. And but I had to, my parents got divorced when I was 12. I was very young, so I had to grow up quickly. I had to, I had the younger brother, I had a mom and my grandma, and I had to, find work and help.
So what did you do? You found some jobs that would just give you enough money to kind of contribute to
anything. Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't about finding a job that would give me enough money. It was about finding something that would give me money. And then when I was 14, I started working on a radio station, and that kind of took over. And I was studying during the day, and I would work on a radio station at night. And it was wonderful. I've learned so much. I was the youngest one there, and I've learned so much there. And I think part of sort of what gravitated me towards storytelling was that I worked on a radio station, and kind of what I brought there was radio theater.
So that makes sense.
So at a very early age, I started to write stories and write scripts and create characters and leave it in my head, and kind of I was that guy. And then while I was there, I learned how to mix music and produce and sell advertising and this and that and the other. So when the program stopped being on air, I was still at the radio station. So, I was given my own shifts, and I kind of went from there. And I was 15 when I did that.
That's such an education. You were really lucky to have all that experience. So what?
Well, it was, but it was basically my attitude then. It was exactly the way it is now. I didn't believe that anything can stop me. There was absolutely nothing. I don't know why or how, but I really felt like there was absolutely nothing I cannot do. So the way I got to work at the radio station was me and a buddy of mine. We went there at the age of 14, and we were like, we want to do this program. We basically walked into a radio station. We didn't know what the right way was. We walked into a radio station, and we sat down with the GM and the producer there. They probably thought we were like, what are these kids? And we said, this is what we want to do. And they said to us, well, if you develop this program, we'll buy it from you. So literally a week later, we were back at the radio station with the plan, and they hired us to host it. And then my friend, he had an interest in cars, and so he peeled off to work for a magazine, and I was stuck with the program, and that's how it all began.
So you didn't even just go to get a job. You actually said, we're going to create our own radio program, and you created that whole thing, produced it, and hosted it.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And they let you do it.
And then I had to go. And I mean, they were very supportive.
Yeah.
But we still had to go and sell advertising and find money for the program to run, for the radio station to be paid, for producers to be paid to record it. Absolutely, yeah. And
I think I have a job for you. I have a job for you now. It sounds like all of those things would transfer well to really famous. That's great. But that's amazing you did that. So this is interesting. So you said you're the same way now, that you
Yeah.
just don't see there not being a way. Like you always think there's nothing that's going to stop you. Like if you
No.
see something or imagine it or think of it, want to do it, whatever, you're just going for it, and you're not getting in your head about, oh, who's going to do this for a couple of 14-year-olds or whatever. You've always been like that, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't believe that there is like the only thing that's stopping us from doing what we are born to be is us. We as a race, as people, we're so in our heads. A lot of the time we don't go out and do things because we've already found the reason why it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a lot of people who don't do many of the things that they really are passionate about and they really want to do. There are the two most important days in a person's life is when he's born or she's born, and when that person understands why he's born. And then until we either chase this meaning our whole lives or we're not. And I kind of, without thinking about it, that was me. I was kind of always chasing this meaning, and I never chose acting. I did a lot of things along the way. I went to university, I got my MBA, and what I wanted to do was tell stories. I felt that this
MBA?
is what. Yeah, my first degree is I got an honors degree in international relations and political science, and I have an MBA.
So, okay, so
but I don't talk about it a lot. I'm like,
okay, but I'm going to tell. I have an accounting degree, so I feel you. I'm in a similar thing. I got an accounting degree, and then I became a therapist before I realized that like there's something about therapy that I like, but it's something else. There's something else, and so I kept going, and now this is the kind of interviewing I do. So I had that accounting degree, and
So we're very alike. Absolutely.
Exactly. So I get it. I feel you, and it's like I don't talk about the accounting degree a lot. However, I do realize that it's interesting for people to hear like, wait, what? So you didn't necessarily know exactly what you wanted from day one, but it does lead you down this path, and it's interesting, and it's a little bit, you don't necessarily know at the time what it's bringing you to, but if you know you're going somewhere and you have it in your head and in your heart that you're kind of looking for something that's right, that feels right, which I think you're talking about as like a purpose or whatever. It's the same idea, I think, for finding what's right and what fits for who you are, and getting to the point where you can be everything that you are. So I get it. So I'm interested in that. So going back, so you got your political science international degree, and then you have an MBA, because that's a big deal. An MBA, it's not just an undergrad in business. So you did that, and then tell me what you were looking for and why you went there, and then what?
Well, so when I finished university with my degree in politics, I realized that it's not enough, because I understood I could see between the lines of what's going on in the world, but I didn't quite understand one of the most important driving forces, which was the economics. And that's why I was like, oh, well, I guess I got to go and study economics now. So that's what brought me there. But I never wanted to work in that field. It's not to say that I never will, because to me, where I am right now in my life, it's not that acting is the end of the way. Right now, this is what I do, and this is what I enjoy, and I still love seeing the life through the eyes of another person. But I can see that I'm also enjoying directing, and I'm enjoying producing, and I'm enjoying every aspect of storytelling. So I see how down the track all those qualifications will come in handy, and how the business aspect of, because understanding end-to-end filmmaking is one thing, but if you can bring it together with understanding of business, then all of a sudden you understand, and you can be useful in producing something and help tell the story and help make the story possible, the story that would not be made otherwise without you. And I look forward to this stage in my life when I kind of decide to hang up my acting boots and say, okay, you know what, it's time to tell these stories in a different capacity.
That is so interesting though, because that is funny that it's the same thing that I was saying before. Like the places I've been in the past have helped me do what I'm doing now. But like at the
Hmm.
time, it didn't seem like it at all. And it seems like such a far cry from it, but it does all add up. So when you are one day, you have this big production company and maybe you'll do a little cameo in one of your movies or whatever you're going to produce, it's all going to make sense that MBA is really going to have come in handy. And not only that, but back to the radio station and learning how to sell, how to get ads.
Hmm.
Boom. You need to sell you need to market the movie too, right?
That's the plan. I mean, I can't call it a plan. It's not really a plan. It's something that I believe that is naturally and organically is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
So
I'm
tell
not the
me.
kind of like I'm not gonna just sit and wait for somebody to say, hey, you know what, this is the right role for you. I'm just gonna go out and create a role for myself,
Yeah.
hopefully,
I
and
think
then
that the most
role for other people as well.
I think that's what a lot of like very successful actors have come to the point of realizing too, right? Because you can't just wait around sitting for the phone to ring, or sit around waiting for the phone to ring, and you can't just wait for the perfect part. It's not necessarily going to be out there. So it's when you can get to the point where you create those roles for you, then you really get a lot more control over what you want to do.
No, but it's not just about control. What it is about for me personally is that I believe there is an element of telling stories which matter, and this is what storytelling should be about. Like even in the time what we're experiencing right now, it is our responsibility as entertainers and as artists to unify people and to bring light into people's lives and bring positive energy into people's lives. And I wish more actors and artists and musicians would sort of partake in this movement, because it is at the end of the day who we are. It's been like this from the beginning of time, and this is like this now, and these are incredibly difficult times, and the world's need more artists, more actors, more storytellers, more musicians to bring light into people's lives, because everybody's stuck in their apartments right now, and those like the fortunate ones are stuck. A lot of people are not stuck, and they cannot be stuck. The medical personnel cannot even go home because they're stuck in hospitals surrounded by sick people. They don't want to bring this to their houses, so they sleep in the hospitals. This should not be happening in the 21st century,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it should not be happening. We can walk around and say how we're this amazing race that's taken over the world. Well, there's a lot of things we didn't think about.
So when you were saying before about how it's kind of similar to what you grew up with,
Mm.
like what you're seeing here now, it kind of rings a bell and feels like this reminds you of a place where you've been before.
Yeah, well, this is where these are the times that really test the character, and some people sort of fold and fumble, and some grow. I strongly believe that one of the reasons we're experiencing what we're experiencing right now, not just in the U.S. but around the world, is because when the pandemic started, we did not unify. We did not help those who needed it. When China needed it, help, we just kind of took a step back and we watched what's going to happen, and then we'll go from there. And that's why, as of a week ago, there's still people swimming around the beaches in Australia, and people are still walking around and doing their normal thing. And in Brazil, they're canceling the quarantine.
I can't.
So at the end of the end of the day, people sort of like get so attached to their flag and their nation rather than who they are. We are all the same, and we should be helping one another. And if we were helping one another back then, a month ago, we would not have to deal with what we're dealing with right now. And the US would not be the number one country in the world in this sort of pandemic cases and sick cases and the number of deaths. So,
Yeah, I'm hopeful that this whole situation, I mean, I think that you can see there are, in many ways, people are coming together like nobody was before. Like you're saying, nobody was unified before. And I'm not saying everybody is unified now, but I think that sometimes this kind of thing can bring that out in people. And I do feel like we're all in the same boat. But again, like you were saying, the lucky ones are all in the same boat. People who are complaining that they're bored and they're locked in or whatever. But it's the idea of, are you stuck at home or are you safe at home? Safe. And so we're all in the same situation. And you don't want to see anybody at the beach or wherever else because we're all here to protect each other. So even if we're home and not infected, we're still going to stay home for everybody else. And that's how it should be, not just for us. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just think it's a chance to come together.
But you see, we can stay at home. There's a lot of people who can, not just because of their job description, but there's a lot of people who cannot help themselves. You can go out, you can go stock up and sit at home and work just the way you and I are having each other right now. But there's a lot of people who are elderly. There's a lot of people who are in nursing homes. There's a lot of people who don't have kids to bring food to them. They can't get in a car and drive somewhere. I try to focus on the positive news and not the negative news. I can see, again, listen, we can just drive each other insane talking about what should have been done, because every country is walking around saying, listen, we're the best, no, we're the best, no, we're the best. And when a tragedy happens, this really kind of shows how ready we are. We've been experiencing a pandemic just about every year for the last 10 years, and we don't have face masks. I bought 2 boxes. My brother lives in London. My mom lives in Spain, and they couldn't get any face masks. She just couldn't. They were not available. So I bought 2 boxes of face masks here through Amazon, like $120 each. And I sent them to them.
Yeah.
Those boxes are $10. And I paid $120. Why is this happening? Why is this allowed? Why didn't the government step in until later? Why didn't they step in and say, hey, we will control the flow of medical equipment? We deal with this every year. It's like a big surprise. Why is it a big surprise? We've been, Hollywood was making films about fighting aliens God knows how many years. Learn from that. Watch the Aliens or Independence Day. It's all there.
Yeah, and not just that. There's also pandemics like Outbreak and Contagion.
Yes. Watch the films that were made 20 years ago. Yeah. They will tell you step by step an emergency plan of what you got to do to combat the pandemic. And we weren't ready. And not just us. No country was ready. That's why we're experiencing what we're experiencing.
Yeah. Have you, by the way?
Nobody helped one another.
Right. I hear you. Have you seen Outbreak? Have you watched it recently or any of
those
movies?
No, I refuse to watch it.
Oh my God, so good. We watched it. It was like the second day. My daughter was in Spain actually, and she flew home like the day, right, the morning after Trump announced that there would be no European travel anymore, coming to the U.S. And so I quickly got her on a plane and brought her home. And maybe the next night we all just sat around as a family and watched Outbreak. I have to tell you, it was good. I mean, half of us were kind of freaked out, I guess, and the other half was like, oh, it's exactly what I needed right now. But it's interesting to watch it now. It's like, yep, same thing, just slightly different.
I prefer watching comedy.
What do you watch?
Comedy. I just, a lot of stand-up, a lot of the things that I never watched before, some in English, some in Russian. It doesn't really matter. Anything that can make me happier and more positive when everybody else is struggling to be positive, I will take that. Because I feel that nobody's going to do it for me. Do you know what I mean? And so it doesn't really matter what language it is. I watched The Invisible Man last night, the horror film.
Wait, what is it?
It's called The Invisible Man. You know the story, The Invisible Man?
No, yeah.
So there's a film that's come out, and it's called The Invisible Man. And it's a horror film. It's more of a suspense film. I tell you what, the best remedy from stress is watching a horror film.
Well, this is what I'm telling you. That's the kind of thing that I think there are two things. Either you watch something light and hilarious and like totally unrealistic, or you watch something that's like really it's kind of scary and like pressing and dangerous, like Outbreak or a horror movie. Same thing. I watched something called Super 8 last week, I think it was. It was a Steven Spielberg and J.J. Abrams combo movie from I don't know, 2011 or something. I don't know how I missed it. But it was perfect. It wasn't a horror movie, but there was a little fantasy mixed in, and it was scary. That's exactly.
Yeah, you have the adrenaline running. Exactly. Yes. You're just like jolt
Yes, lean into the adrenaline.
Exactly.
So the Invisible Man, I have to put that on my list now. What is that on?
I
Is it
hope you
on
enjoy it.
Netflix or something?
I don't know. I'm subscribed to like every possible platform, so I think I was just browsing through it and I found it.
The problem with
Yeah, it's something because it's current. It's amongst one of the like indie theaters because nobody's going to the theaters right now. So it's one of the like indie theaters kind of
right.
playlist.
So they released it, or did they release it early? Oh, it's on. I see what
It's
you're
on.
saying.
I think it was supposed to be on in a cinema, or it is in the cinema. I don't know, but they released it through that platform for people to watch when they're at home.
Gotcha. Well, there is lots of good stuff. I'm going to put that on my list. So this is obviously a different time, but when there isn't a pandemic going on and you're not home all the time or going to your studio and recording things, what do you do? Like, tell me about your life in Los Angeles. Who do you hang out with? What do you do? You sail.
I sail. Yeah.
You have a boat?
I don't have a boat. No, not yet. I'm working on it.
Well, you know what they say about you were saying about the best 2 days of your life, right? There's an expression about boats, right? You know what it is? Have you heard it?
What?
That the best, you know what the best day of your life is? It's the day that you buy your boat. And you know what the second best day of your life is?
When
it's the day you sell your boat.
This is it's a full-time job. Because I was, I started sailing. I was 5, and I went through dinghies all the way to like ocean racing, and I still race out of New York with the crew. We did the Newport to Bermuda race a couple of years ago.
Cool.
And all the races around New York. It was really cool. Yeah,
that's awesome.
But here in LA, I don't race because I prefer to stay with one crew, and we've become friends. And when you ocean race, it's very important to be able to rely on the person you're with, and so it's a lot of trust. Okay. But here, I kind of every now and then I go sailing, and I just kind of go out and look at the ocean, and one day I'll be there sailing.
So you don't live.
That day hasn't come yet.
It's coming. I feel it. It's coming. So are you like part-time in New York too, or no?
No. I lived there when we shot The Americans.
I figured,
for many years, I was still living in LA, but I was flying to New York to work. And then I went and I lived in New York for 2 years. I think it was season 4 and 5, and then I moved back to LA. So when I was living there, I think I was living there, or maybe I was at NYU. Anyway, it was like maybe 3-4 years ago is when I decided to join the crew and race.
Okay. But I figured it would be better. I mean, how often can you sail from New York? It's limited season, right?
Yeah, but it's fantastic. Like, there's a lot more places to sail out of New York than out of LA.
Well, why is that?
Out of LA, it's only up and down the coast, and then next thing you know, you got to go to Hawaii or South Pacific. It's a long voyage. In New York, you can sail around the Sound. You can sail around the Long Island area and go to Maine and go to Rhode Island. You can sail down the coast, South Carolina to Florida, the Keys and Havana and the Antilles. All the Caribbean islands. So.
Yeah, that's true. There are plenty of, I always think about that for drives too. It's a lot easier, but California's big. You have a lot there, but I see what you're saying. If you're doing a trip from one place to another, you have a lot on the East Coast.
Yeah, so, you sail for a week on the East Coast and you're in Bermuda. You sail for a week out of LA and
It would be nice to be sailing around the Caribbean right now. I'm just saying, I'm like kind of imagining that would be really nice.
I did that in November. Yeah,
which islands?
10 days. Out of Martinique, and then all the way down to Tobago Keys. Yeah, for 10 days basically. We had a 42-foot catamaran. And we brought it up to like 19 knots. It was fast.
So how many people are you with when you're doing this? Like, are you with friends or?
So the catamaran was 5. It was the captain and the owner of the boat I raced for in New York. He was there. He organized the trip. So it was him and his wife and me and sort of everybody else was from New York. His friends were from New York.
Okay.
So it was a very social trip.
That sounds, oh, that'd be so good, especially right
Yeah, you
now.
wake up at, oh, look, you have no idea. You wake up at 5 in the morning and you jump in the water that's like 100 degrees and you swim with turtles. It's incredible. Really, really is incredible.
It does sound good.
And you see, being the Caribbean, you see what the pirates used to see back in the day.
Like
You
what?
know, well, because you are seeing the islands from the ocean. You're not basically flying there on a plane and you land and you see the towns and the jungle. You get there by boat. So as you sail past the islands, you basically are taking the same routes the pirates were taking back in the day. So you see what they see, the hills that they saw, the jungle that they saw. I mean, surely they didn't see the towns, but they saw everything else. And you can relate to that little that pirate inside of you kind of comes out and plays.
So, can I ask you some deeper questions about life? You ready for
You can ask me
these?
anything you want. Yeah.
All right. So, what is one of your life regrets?
Life regrets. I don't know. You know, I think about it a lot. I I don't know, something that depended on me or something that sort of was just circumstantial.
Whichever is. See, I tend to think of the word regret as something that you wish you did differently. But I
Mm.
know that technically there are two definitions of regret. So like it can be you personally, or it can be something that you wish didn't happen. But I feel like it's
Hmm.
more the personal is more of the thing that I think of.
I don't know. You know, I when people say, "Oh, you know, you shouldn't regret anything because that's what makes who you are," I believe that. You know, when I was younger, like I did a lot of work on myself for personal development and professional development. And when I was younger, I really missed not having a father in my life. It is not something I regret now because I do thoroughly believe that what happens happens for a good reason. And you know, it's like a snowball effect. Not having a father made me grow up quicker. Because I grew up quicker, it was you know, I had to make decisions very early in life that led me to this point right now. That gave me this sort of this spirit that, you know, back in the day took me to the radio station 9 years ago when I had a very comfortable life in Australia. You know, get rid of everything and come to LA. You know, people don't come to LA or stay in LA for no reason. But I had this belief that, you know, there is a place for me somewhere where people will understand me, and it was LA. So at this point in my life, I do really believe that there really isn't anything I regret.
Mm-hmm.
There's things that happen in my life and there's people you meet. Of course, listen, like everybody else, you meet the wrong people and you get betrayed, and you know, your heart gets broken, and all these things happen to me the way they happen to you and your viewers and your readers. They happen to all of us, but it's not what happens to us. It's what we do with it. It's like boxing, you know. It's not how many times you fall down or get knocked down. It's how many times you get up. And it's the sort of the part of the conversation you and I had earlier where we talked about whether or not people choose to pursue what they're passionate about. A lot of people don't do it because they find a reason not to, because it's easy not to. It's comfortable to not stand out and to just fit in. But that's not what we're born to be. You know, ships, yachts, they are a lot more comfortable in the harbors and in the clubs and marinas, but that's not what they're built for. They're built for ocean racing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if you watch any of the Whitbread videos of the Volvo ocean racing videos, you see what these boats, the pounding they take. This is what people are. We are made to take the pounding. God's never going to give us anything that we are not prepared for. So if we choose not to take the pounding, that's a completely different thing. You can buy a beautiful boat and put it in the harbor and just like just sit on the beach and look at it. But that's not what I chose to do in my life, and I get pounded a lot.
All right, so
You
tell me
know,
about some of these poundings. What are the
personally and
poundings?
professionally, you know. But I choose to get up, and I choose to, you know, you know, something happened to me a couple of years ago, which was very difficult for me. And what what came out of that was a realization that that was a lesson that I needed to learn. Everybody comes into our lives to bring a message, to deliver the message. Whether or not we're able to sort of receive the message, it's up to us. But the message is there, and whether it takes us a day or a week or a whole lifetime to decode that message, that's up to us. But the message is there, and there was a message in everything that ever happened to me. And once I started to think in those terms, I started to see those messages quicker. And I started to understand that everything that happens to me is for my own benefit. And once you grow over it, once you get out of it, you realize that this is actually making you stronger. They're not just words. They're not just sayings. They're not just like Facebook memes. These things are real. The energies are real. What you think is real. It's like.
So how did you? Yeah. But how did you get to that point where you're being pounded down, you're going through something very difficult, and then you start to see it differently? So like, how did you either make yourself look at it differently, or what happened?
You ask questions of universe, of yourself. I travel a lot, and a lot of the time in the beginning of the road trip, I would ask questions of, I travel by myself, for example. A lot of the time I travel by myself, I do a lot of soul searching, and I would ask the questions of the universe, why this is not happening, why this is happening, and you don't get an answer straight away, but most of the time, a lot of the time, towards the end of the trip, those answers will always be answered. What happens, in fact, you're looking inside, you're looking into your heart, you're connecting with the universe, you're opening up to what's around you, and the answers are there. We just got to see them.
That's so interesting. So you take trips by yourself for the purpose of soul searching. I totally get that. I don't do that anymore, but when I was younger, I would do that a lot. And I don't think I did it intentionally, though. Like, I would know that, oh, you know what? Something's going on for me, and I need to get in the car and go somewhere and like take a trip by myself, and I would do it. And just like you said, that kind of thing would naturally happen. I haven't done that in a long time, but I do think that's a natural way of bringing that out. And I don't think a lot of people do, but I recommend it. It's a good idea.
There is so much noise around us, and the way information is processed a lot of the time is through is by our brain, and that's I believe that we should be processing information with our hearts, because that's where the honesty is. Brain, when we are born as kids, we think with our hearts. There is nothing that's impossible to a kid. The kid doesn't sort of crawl. Did you ever watch a kid try to learn to walk? A kid is like, he gets up and falls down, gets up and falls down. The kid never says to himself or decides to himself, you know what, this is not for me. I'm not going to walk.
Right. Or it wasn't meant to be. I'm terrible at this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
a sign.
It's a sign. I'm not meant to walk. No, right. The kid is just gets up and walks. And eventually he walks, and then he runs, and then he goes to the moon. That's what people are. But as we get older, we start to use more of this than this, and this is why we tell ourselves, oh no, this isn't right, and I should be dressing like this, and I should be behaving like that, and I should be talking to these people or hiding this, or this is, and it's not the right way to live life. Each to their own. I'm not preaching here, but that's not what I do, and it's not what I believe is the right way to live life, or really to find the meaning of life. So we really got to use more of this than this.
Yeah. And I think a little bit of a combo too. You can figure things out with your brain, right? But by using your heart too. Like, I'm not going to discount the brain because I'm a therapist too, so I know about thinking, analyzing, figuring things out, right? But at the same time, yes, what you're saying is get back to that childhood natural ability to just be who you are without cutting yourself down in your brain and overthinking things, and all the head trash doesn't do you any favors.
But if, for example, like even being a therapist, if, for example, you have a choice to make a decision, one being based on your analysis that came through your brain, based on your mind, and another one is your gut. What are you going to do? What are you going to follow?
Definitely gut.
And gut doesn't come from your head, is it?
No, but I'm an intuitive person. So by nature, I
Right.
believe in intuition a lot. Like I definitely feel things. Not everybody is like that, but I do. And also your narrative that comes from your brain can be faulty, right? You can teach yourself a certain narrative about yourself or people in your life or whatever. So you tell yourself this narrative you don't even realize you are. And then it becomes like a permanent thing in your life that you believe to be true. And
absolutely.
It has no basis in reality. So it's like, but you can use your brain to reverse that at the same time. Like that's something that I would do maybe in therapy is like, well, what is this narrative that you've created for yourself? And now let's poke holes in it and show you that actually that's a false narrative. And now let's look at what the reality is. You know what I mean?
But you're basically trying to undo what your brain did.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So you're using your brain to undo what your brain did to
and
you.
Where does the intuition come from? If you take how we have the reptilian brain, the mammal brain, and then we have the human brain. You take the human brain out of the equation, we're good. It's the human brain that creates all the problems.
Yes.
So
yes. It's like
I can talk about it forever.
I know, I can too. I feel you. But tell me what one of your most memorable trips was to where then when you did one of these soul searching trips. What was your destination, or do you not have a destination?
I don't think I ever have a destination. When I just came to LA, what I used to do was every week I would pick a place on the map, just point my finger, and I would just go there. If I could get there and come back within a day. And then once a month, I would go somewhere and spend a night there. So I would take those 4 trips a month. And it didn't matter to me where you go, because it's not to sort of listen. Of course, there were sort of places where I wanted to visit, like Mount Rushmore and South Dakota and then New York, Moscow, all those places, right? I remember I was in the south of Portugal, and there's a mountain, a hill. The south of Europe was taken over by so many different civilizations over the years, and there's a hill that has 3 castles on it, each belonging to the previous civilization. And I got there after hours. It was after dark. I didn't know, but I wasn't gonna turn around and go back. So I climbed over the fence, and I walked in there, and it was a medieval castle. And it was, when you watch movies about knights and kings and queens, and then you see an old castle that's sort of like in ruins, but it's overgrown by the vines, but all the turrets and the walls are still there. And you can imagine, because all the castles basically are built in the same way, and you can imagine what it was like. And so I remember standing on a wall of that castle. There's nobody around me. It's pitch black. And I see this, I'm on the wall of this castle, overgrown with vine, and I'm looking down the hill into this valley that goes all the way down to the Atlantic. And the moon was coming up. And it created the moonwalk. And I'm looking down, and I see the whole valley on the palm of my hand that becomes the ocean, that becomes the moon. And there's nobody around me. And it was, I grew up on books like that, and history is something I was always fascinated with, and it was really special. I still remember that I took that trip 20 years ago, and I still remember.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
All right, so who do people think you are? You're famous. You have some people think they project their own thoughts onto, you must be like this or whatever. So what do you think the image is that people have of you?
I think everybody else got their own perception of me. Regardless of how well they know me, I think everybody's kind of, it's like the artists, the painters. They don't paint the model. They paint their own imagination of what the imagination sees. And I think everybody's perception of one another is not really what the person is. It's what they think the person is. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not.
So
I don't know. I don't think there is one. I don't think there is one.
Right. So you think that all different people, based on whatever their experiences are, see you a different way. Which
not just necessarily experience. I mean, most of the people that, when I do the live broadcasts, I don't know most of those people. I don't know most of the fans. I mean, hopefully, one day we'll kind of cross paths and we'll be able to do open panels and things like that, and I'll get a chance to meet our friends. But right now, I don't have this opportunity, and right now, I don't know those people. But I feel like we know each other, and I feel like they know me, and they feel that they know me. Well, some of them continue to call me Oleg. Sometimes some of them continue to call me Yevgeny, and some of them call me Costa, and it's and then you get abused for spoiling and telling something, commenting on something that happened during the New York premiere of Homeland, and people in India or England haven't seen it yet, and then it's your fault.
Like, that's not fair. That is not fair at all.
It's not, but it's one of those things, and then sort of it's kind of it's part of the territory. You got to figure out, okay, well, at the end of the day, it's like the previous conversation you and I had. What do you think of yourself?
That's my next question.
Right. What is that perception? And how easy is it for people's opinion to lead you astray, to influence you? I don't, I other people's opinions never mattered to me. I think that's one of the reasons I was able to do what I did. And a lot of, often people ask me, how do you become successful? What do you do? It's like, it's very simple. You give it everything you have. Like there's no sitting on the fence. You can't sort of want to be an actor and then at the same time have a plan B. My plan B is another way of achieving plan A. I'm sure I stole it from somebody, but it's so true. It's not, there is no plan B. What defines you? It takes a few career moves, a few tasks in life to find who you are. You went through accounting and therapy to come to now journalism. And I took all these tasks in life and I don't even know where I'm going yet. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So but what I do know is that I listen to my heart. And what I do know is that it absolutely doesn't matter to me I listen to people and I listen to their opinion, but at the end of the day, nobody's opinion is going to be more important than my own. If I feel that this is the right thing to do, then I will do it. And it cost me, truth be told, it cost me a lot of relationships. It cost me a lot of fights with my family. It cost me a lot of fights with my friends. But at the end of the day, they are not living my life. I'm living my life. And what we need to remember as people, as we make all those hard choices in life, is that, if somebody tells you can't do it, you got to remember is that they can't do it. Doesn't mean that you can't do it. And you just got to keep going, and you got to keep listening to your heart, and you got to be making decisions that are right for you. And so I don't have an understanding of who I am. I'm still looking for it. I don't know the meaning of life and what I'm going to be in 20 years time or 5 years time. I don't know. I'm enjoying the journey. To me, it's not about to get somewhere. I don't have a dream of getting this award or making that film. I have ideas, I have desires, I have goals, certain projects I want to be a part of, but that's not the end goal. Because the beautiful thing about potential is that you can have a dream, but then once you get there, another dream comes, and that's how we grow. Our potential changes as we achieve certain things. And it's beautiful to have achievable potential, achievable dreams, achievable goals, because once you achieve that, your view changes. It's like climbing the mountain. Imagine, if you think of, I want to just climb to the top, you'll never climb to the top. What you got to think about is, I want to climb there. So when you climb there, your view changes, and you can see so many other places you can go to. But if you're just climbing to the mountain, you'll get there, but then you're going to miss everything in between. So I don't want to miss what's in between. I want to to see what else is out there. I want to experience the journey between here and the top of the mountain. And that's kind of how I see it.
I love that. And I know you don't care about anybody's opinion, but I'm going to give you a little therapist opinion anyway. So my therapist opinion is you're in good shape. So whatever that perspective is, and it's perspective, it's from your heart. But I think your brain is a little involved too.
Oh, very involved. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I fight with my brain all the time. Are you kidding?
Yes. The battle of the heart and the brain. I feel you, but it's all working there. And I like where you are. So I'm going to give you a good positive feedback for that. Therapist feedback.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for your professional opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. This was great. I really appreciate you doing it.
Of course.
That was Costa Ronin. It was my very first remote interview. I have a new setup now at home to do more of them, so you can expect more new conversations. It's a tad experimental, I admit. I'm still working out the audio and video technical components of everything and working through the awkwardness of a video chat instead of a face-to-face sitting side-by-side talk, which is what I usually prefer. So bear with me, and if you have tips, let me know. You can email me at reallyfamouspodcast@gmail.com. By the way, there's a video of Costa and me on Zoom talking. So if you'd like to check that out and see what it was like, each of us at home having a conversation online, you can. It's on my YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com/reallyfamous and tap the red subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified whenever I drop a new video with a celebrity, which is now quite often. Please go ahead and join me on YouTube. I'm Carrie Mathison. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with me and Costa Ronin. I hope all's well with you and that you're safe and healthy and hanging in there. And here's a little bonus with Costa. If you could choose any two celebrities to be your parents, who would you choose?
Wow. I don't know. Listen, it's a very difficult question because I don't follow the lives of celebrities, so I don't know who is a good parent, who's a bad parent. I can tell you who I would want to hang out with and learn from. I'd want to hang out with somebody like Gary Oldman and learn from him. I think he's an absolute masterpiece of an actor. He's never been the same in any of his roles. He's always different. He's able to not just play those roles, but become those characters. And you're born with that. It's a gift that comes from God. And I wanna spend some time with him and learning from somebody like that. I don't know about his parental qualities. Okay.
Don't forget it. Let's just let you hang out and not have him as a parent. Forget it. We'll skip that. Yeah. So who is the most recent celebrity sighting that you've had? It can't be like on set or at a project. It can't be in a place where you would expect to see a colleague. It has to be like you're shopping, you're at Ralph's or something like that, and then you see somebody suddenly. Who was it?
I saw Tom Hanks at a hockey game here in LA, like one of the Kings games. You kind of do a double take, because we work. I was fortunate enough to work with some incredible talent, and people I've been admiring as artists my whole life. Quentin, I grew up watching his. Well, didn't grow up really, but I've been watching his films for the last 20 years. The man is genius. Right. So meeting him, working with him I think it's a dream of every actor in the world. And that happened, and I got to work with Sharon Stone, which was an incredible experience. And, that's Sharon Stone. These are incredible artists who've been incredible artists their whole lives. But outside of work, I think it was quite cool to see Tom Hanks and just watch a game.
Totally.
It's like we didn't even talk. I saw him and he had no idea who I was. So it's that relationship. But both of us are watching the game and enjoying the game, and it's cool. And he wasn't. It's not like he had courtside seats. he wasn't there to be seen as Tom Hanks at the game.
Nice,
He was
right.
there to really just watch the game. And I respect that. I really respect when people do not let their fame stand on the way of who they really are. Hi, I'm Costa Ronin. I just spoke with Kara from Really Famous, and I want you guys to remember to keep the social distancing in play, but not the emotional distancing, because at the end of the day, we're all the same. Thank you.
And by the way, we just definitely did some non-emotional distancing. We talked about some real things.
We really did. Well, you got to know a lot about me. I didn't get to know much about you. Hopefully we'll get to chat one day when I get to know about your life as well.